Hello everyone, welcome to Green Vest Makerspace. My name is Mac, and today we are going to be making a combination bookmark thumb book that looks like this. Locks into place so they stay together. How it works is, when you want to start reading, you take the bookmark out, open your book, and the thumb book allows you to hold the page open with one hand, and it stays in your finger nicely. And when you're done reading, take your bookmark, stick it in the slot, lock it into place, and there you have it. Could be a good gift idea for holidays or a birthday. Plans are available for free at the link below. Stick around, let's have some fun. All right, first step is to print out the plans. These drawings are to scale, so all you have to do is print it out, cut out the shape, glue or tape it to your piece of stock. I'm going to use 1/2 inch thick stuff. Alternatively, you could 3D print using the file that I also attached. It's the same size there, and you'd find the location of the holes using a pin or otherwise, marking it on the wood. That's pretty good. Now, find the location on the wood that you're most keen on keeping. I'll try to avoid those knots. Let's do that. Double-sided tape. Try the thin Sharpie. See if I can find the edges well enough. Could use the fat Sharpie, but that might bleed a little bit underneath where the stencil is, so I'm thinking the less ink the better. But before you pick it up, use a pin, mark the location of that center hole. Pretty good. Now transitioning to the drill press, time to cut that center hole that we marked. I was wrong. Don't cut that hole first. Cut these smaller. They're 5/32 inch diameter holes. Cut those first. Otherwise, if you cut this thing first, you're going to lose the location of those holes. So cut these smaller holes first, and then change your bit to 3/4 inch Forstner bit, and then cut that center hole. Finding the depth of the cut. Looks good. Now put your 3/4 inch Forstner bit in. Finding the depth again. Lock in. Now we can come from the other side and just barely drill the rest of that out. Over at the router table, we're going to take a chamfer bit with a bearing at the end to make this little detail here. Make sure to do a couple test cuts first to make sure that you have the router or the bit height set where you want it. Otherwise, you might get a chamfered edge that's either too much or too little for your liking. Now head over to your bandsaw or a jigsaw or a scroll saw or even a coping saw. Saw wide around the mark and we'll sand it up after. Now let's take it over to the sanders. We'll use a drum sander for these concave surfaces here and a belt sander for this one. I was going to use this belt sander to make it down to the line and also just to smooth this flat surface off, but I don't love the ergonomics of a high-powered belt sander and this tiny workpiece. So I think what I'm going to do is just stick some sandpaper on a table and just rub it like that and see what happens. So we got 3 grits, 80, 100, 220. Start with 80 to really get down to that black line that we made. It doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of rough out the grooves that we made from the bandsaw. Just get that out as best you can. Good enough for me. We'll move on to the next grit. That's pretty good. Out of 220. Oh yeah. Now we'll do the same to the rest of the edges. For a little more detail work, I'm going to try to smoothen up the inside of that bore. These edges on the 5/32 inch bit are sharp, and this is where your thumb is going to be resting, so we're going to try to make that as comfortable to the touch as possible with these little strips of sandpaper here, and hold it in place. Probably this might be a little bit too much for what it's already feeling like, so I'll start with I think this is 150. I feel like I'm flossing teeth. You don't have to go crazy. You don't want to make that hole too big, otherwise the leather bookmark might have a tendency to slip out of that groove. 220. Give it a test with your thumb. Yeah, that's feeling pretty good. Nice and smooth all around. So our next step is to make this little dowel pin. It's going to go through that hole in the leather. And as you can see here, it's just a 1/4 inch dowel, 1 1/4 inches long, with a little taper on either end and a groove down the center that helps kind of hold the leather in that in the location of the pin. So in order to make this, I've marked this stock dowel at 3 locations. Right there is the 1 1/4 inch mark. Right there is 5/8 half of 1 1/4 inches. That's where the groove is going to go. But to safely make that, I'm going to cut way out here to leave me some extra room in the drill press chalk. So the idea here is to stick the dowel in the drill press and then use sandpaper, different grits of sandpaper, to taper the ends and also to create that groove in the middle. But the first time I did this, I cut the dowel at exactly 1 1/4 inches long, which did not allow me a lot of meat on the dowel with which to catch using the chalk. Now that I overcut it, over here is the waist side. So there's my halfway mark and there's my 1 1/4 mark. So now I've got more room to actually grip with the chuck. So I'm going to stick this in here. There's my middle mark right there. I'm going to make that groove first, the middle groove first. My hands will be safely away from that cut, and I'm just going to put it in there hand tight, and then take a thin piece of sandpaper and whittle away. You really don't need to remove much to allow that hole in the leather to catch the dowel. Do a little bit more here. Should be fine. Now we'll start making the tapered ends. So use, I think this is 80 and this is 150 or something, but whatever you have on hand to taper the ends. So, higher it down. Soften it up. There we go. Now we'll chop it at 1 1/4. Stick this end in, and then taper the other side. Back at the drill press table, time to taper the other end. It's a little uneven. Probably take a little bit more off this side. Worked for me. Give it a test fit. Yeah. Time to make a leather bookmark. So cut out your 2-scale template here. Find a piece of scrap leather. This here is a little less than 1/10 of an inch. And the hole that we cut are 5/32 of an inch, which is 1/565, so slightly larger than the size of the leather. So just keep in mind the maximum thickness of leather that you can stick through that slot. So take your stencil. That's a little rough right there, so maybe I'll stick it right there. Try not to waste too much material. And hold it down and mark each of the corners with this scratch awl, and also the center of that hole. This template here, in the final design, I'll make that a sharp corner so it's easier to find the actual edge, but I'll just eyeball it for now. Punch it straight through. Center the hole. Roughly there, and roughly there. And take your straight edge. Now we'll use a box cutter to actually cut that out. To round off the corners, what I like to do is take a series of angled cuts as opposed to trying to make an actual arc around a corner. So start out basically parallel to the edge, just taking a little slice off like that, and give it a little turn, do a little bit more, so it ends up looking like a curved edge. Hopefully matches the other one. Yeah, good enough. And then this hole is a 3/16 inch to accommodate the dowel pin that we made. That's not coming off. And if you feel like it, there's different means of personalization. I'm gonna put some initials in this. It's just a 1/8 inch alphabet and number set you can buy online. There we go. Stick it on. Make sure you test how hard you hit these before you actually do it. Sometimes you'll actually tear the leather. Now for the fun part, putting it all together. Bookmark. As you can see here, I went through a number of different design changes before arriving at what ended up being the final design over here. So I kind of just tinkered around with the design in an app called Shaper 3D for the iPad, and I was able to make different designs, print them out using a 3D printer, and then get a true feel for what the form and function was going to be. So yeah, this one here had some rounded, a little bit of rounded edges there. I like this design, but the actual tendency for that slight of a bend to remain in the book crease was just not what I was looking for. So I ended up making that shape a little bit more pronounced so that has a greater tendency to actually stay in the crease of the book. If you'd like to hear more about the design process that I went through to arrive at this, the Shaper 3D app, and the 3D printer that I used, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll make a video about that as well. And there it is. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comments section below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Today we're going to be making a combination bookmark leather. This thing allows you to read the book with one hand.